Boom. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Peasant Party Podcast. I am your host, Charlotte Warren. We put the pink lights on today just to see if it looked better. So, no special occasion. Actually, no, there's an extremely special occasion because I've got two very great friends in studio with me. And I'm going to have, our returner start with his introduction before we introduce somebody new.
Okay, so it feels like I've been here a lot recently. But of course, my name's Owen Moore. I have my podcast. I have my TikTok page, Dating with Owen. So I just talk about wanting to see people treat each other better, dating, modern day culture, my disdain of the dating apps, and really, just life in general. So really happy to be here and excited to get started.
Love to see it. And, you say, as of right now, you don't have a podcast, but you've got some really exciting news that you shared on our last episode. If you do want to, start one, you've got a great home to do so after you move to Austin. Owen's moving to Austin if you didn't catch the last episode.
Yeah, it's in the works. Just got some things to figure out, but really excited to get out here and see how life unfolds.
Yeah, and we've brought some sparkling rosé to celebrate, so I'm going to start passing that around. That'll be fun. And I'm going to introduce somebody to my left. We got a newbie in studio.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz. Not really a content creator, TikTok persona. I do design, and I like running, big on health and wellness and mindfulness, and I'm really happy to be here, so thank you for having me.
Ooh, love to see it. And you also just started your own business, right?
Oh yeah, I just started a life coaching business focusing on mindfulness.
Nice. And you got your first client.
Yes, I did get my first client.
Congratulations.
So celebrating that.
Here's your sparkling rosé to celebrate.
I will give you a class.
Woo, love to see it. Awesome. Yeah, and Liz, so and you've been in Austin, so we've got obviously Owen that's making his moves to Austin in the coming months. And then Liz, you're relatively new to Austin as well.
Yeah, I've been here for about a year and a half. I moved from DC, which is how I met Owen originally and how we met. Yeah. And so far, Austin's been great. Everyone's so welcoming and social. It's so easy to meet people and being such like a big city where everyone's also moving.
Yeah, nice. And how does it compare to dating in DC? Give Owen some pro tips on how things are going to be different.
Oh, let's see. Well, I think DC, everyone is big on networking. So it's like, what can you do for me? How can we benefit from this? I will say, when you end things with people you date with in DC, it's like, let's add each other on LinkedIn. Let's be friends. And it's like, okay. And then when it's ending in Austin, you're like, see you never. Bye.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And then before DC, were you in like Scottsdale or Phoenix or something like
that?
Yeah,
I'm from Phoenix originally.
Okay.
That being said, I went to school in Tucson, but I didn't really date as much because I was younger in high school. So it's like very short, those amateur relationships almost.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense. I was kind of trying to get a feel for dating in different cities from people who have been in different cities and dated there. When it comes to like Austin dating stereotypes, and please, let Owen know. And I think, Owen, you've had the chance to maybe explore Tinder, Bumble, and whatnot in your time here. Maybe go on a few dates. So the stereotypes you see about Austin dating, what are they, and are they true, in your opinion, Liz?
So I have like a personal take on this where I think dating now is great. I don't have any issues with it. I think when I first came here and I was first dating and like meeting people, I really struggled with that. But I think for me, I needed to do a lot of work on myself, and I noticed that, and I reflected and like worked on that. And now when I date, like whatever happens, like I think I can get a relationship if I want it. I can get something casual. I can just get to know someone, and hasn't been an issue. I consider it like, if it doesn't work out, I met someone cool, and everything happens for a reason.
Nice. That's a super positive attitude to have. Any thoughts on that, Owen?
It's good to, go into things having a positive mindset. And then for, I feel like a lot of the things that what people will say, dating freaking sucks in insert city here, there's always going to be that caveat that it's not going to be applicable for everybody. So when you see or hear people who say, I think dating here is great, or that's been their experience, it's like, it's valid because ultimately they're speaking for their experience. You just got to understand it, respect it, and, really just hope the same thing happens to you.
Totally. Have you ever heard anybody say, though, like, my city is the right city for dating, or this is the best city for dating? Because I feel like I've never heard anybody say that.
No, actually, I've never actually heard anyone say this is like a great city for dating, but I've heard things like, this is a great city to meet people or great people. You know, there's a lot of young people. There's a lot of people who are really active, go-getters, ambitious. So it can increase your odds, but no one's ever been like, oh, you'll find your wife here. But I've definitely heard cities such as like, you know, even DC, for example. You know, I rag on DC a lot, but DC is almost like, I feel like 2-to-1 woman to man. So if you're a man like looking to like date women and I guess increase your odds, I mean, that's a fantastic place to be, but you never know.
Totally. Yeah, because I feel like when I first went on TikTok, because got TikTok in 2020. And of course, dating stuff popped up. I was single at the time. And I remember I would think of all these like qualms I had with Austin dating. And then it was just like, are other cities just having the same issue, except in Colorado they're camping, and in Nashville they want to be country stars, and in LA they want to be actors? Because it feels like we're all hearing the same thing, and everyone thinks the grass is greener elsewhere.
Yeah, I don't think the grass is greener anywhere. I think it's just you end up attracting like what you are in a sense. But also, I think it's just like, it's all like a numbers game at the end of the day, unfortunately. Like, you have to keep going out there, keep going on dates, and eventually like you learn what you like, you learn what you don't like, and it's easier to kind of just like weed off the people.
It's like you almost gotta like keep throwing like darts at the board, and you know, like the little cliche saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But ultimately, it's true. If you're not putting yourself out there, if you're not willing to fall down 9 times, get up 10, it's like, how are you gonna really be able to find like what you want? Because Amazon Prime, you know, I always joke, isn't gonna deliver the person of your dreams through your, you know, mail slot. You have to just try. And it could be a little discouraging and whatnot at times, I'm sure, but ultimately you just have to get yourself into the game and play.
I agree. And I think putting yourself out in new places too, like if something that you're trying over and over again isn't working for dating, like go try somewhere new and go meet people elsewhere if you can.
Totally. I totally agree with that. I guess one question, and Liz, I'm not sure if you remember this far back to your time living in DC, but Owen, when you are on dating apps and you see kind of the stereotypical things that women are putting from within each city, what are some common things you see on women's profiles in Austin versus DC? You know, like if you're in Austin, for example, I remember I would see a lot of like, you know, I'm always paddleboarding on the lake or something like that, like on the guy profiles, or, you know, what do you get for the table? You know, queso and walk, like those kinds of stereotypical things that were specific to Austin. Are there any that stand out to you? And Liz, if you recall your time in DC, what did you see with the guys? I guess we'll go first with Owen.
Yeah, so I definitely have noticed a lot here that there's a lot of people who are on the water or really into hiking, biking, very just fitness, image conscious city. There's a lot of like bikini pictures on like a boat, I guess Lake Travis, something along those lines. So a lot of people seem to really be into that, or they'll be really into kind of festivals. So like Coachella, Ultra, I think that's what EDM one. I don't know. I'm very EDM.
Sounds right.
I'm very EDM illiterate, so I apologize. But it looks like a lot of people are really into that, and even in like DC, you'll see a lot of political innuendos or political jokes, and a lot. I mean, I definitely see it way more in DC, but people will be like cons, Trump supporters, like they'll be like, hell no, like explicitly they will say it. They won't even like, you know, hint at it, or they'll be like, I'm really attracted to like security clearances, or people who can get me like White House tours, or just little like silly shit like that. And you'll see people who do like the adult social like kickball leagues. They'll be wearing their shirts or at the flip cup bars and whatnot. And over here you see people who are more at like live music concerts or live music venues, and they're a little bit more in tune with like nature, I guess you could say. So I'm kind of picking up on that.
Yeah, no, I feel like if I were in DC, like, wait, is it easy to get a White House tour?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I would be all about. I'd be like, everyone's like, oh, the girls are after the guys with the boats. I'd be like, I want to go to the White House, or I'd be like, who's in the CIA, or like, who are the aliens real? I have to find out if if I lived in DC, I would be on a mission to find out if the aliens were real. That would be me. Well, maybe I have, like.
I thought the CIA like announced it.
Wait, you? I think
we did conspiracy theory podcast.
We are not a conspiracy theory podcast, but I do want to know if the aliens are real. I want to know what's in Area 51. I think that's normal.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want someone with a security clearance.
No, I mean,
But for the White House tours, I mean, if you want to like, you know, go for the public tours, like through your
request it through your
congressman.
Yeah.
If you have like, you know, a contact at the local, you know, state office, you can like make a phone call and they can like put the request in for you. But like, you don't really see shit. If you really want like the real shit, that's a little harder because you have to actually like meet somebody who's involved with the administration, and that's like a little bit more of a flex. Like, oh, I got to go to the White House like bowling alley, for example.
nice.
It's like stuff like that. That's a little bit more like, oh shit.
Nice.
So yeah.
That's pretty dope. Liz, what differences do you notice?
So I don't notice like anything major. So I notice things that I don't like in profiles. And one big thing that happened a lot in DC that I did notice is that men were very descriptive about what they wanted in a woman, like Owen was saying, but from a woman's perspective, like they would put has to be like super thin, under X amount of height, this weight. Like I saw multiple profiles like that. Not like several, but like definitely enough to be like, this is not okay. Whereas like I would say Austin is more casual, like more not really serious about like the dating apps and like what they're looking for.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, cool. No, I love compare contrasting dating in different cities, and I'm pouring myself another glass of sparkling rosé. I do want to jump into some of these questions we've gotten from our listeners, and we're doing a lot more like quick hit fun ones today. It's Friday. I don't feel like tackling the crazies, so we're going to do some fun ones. Okay, one is this. The first one we're going to do, this is one woman sharing with us her diabolical plan to basically force a define the relationship conversation, and she wants to get our thoughts and also show off. So, yeah, her diabolical plan. She says, hey, Charlotte and guests, thought I'd share a pro tip for getting an answer on what are we with someone you've been seeing but have yet to DTR with. What you do is you invite the guy you've been seeing to a friend gathering and have a friend who is in on this plan come up to you and say, you guys look so cute. Can I get a picture? Then once the picture's taken, you have the friend show you and the guy saying, wow, this is a great picture. You should totally put this on your story. Then you assess how the guy reacts. If he freaks out or looks uncomfortable or says something like, wait, really? Are you sure you're going to post that? That is a sign he is not it. In a lot of cases, when it's right, though, the guy has been all for it and posts the picture to his own story even. That's usually been the trigger for two define the relationships in my friend group and has become the first official picture for them, and it's a great memory. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think that means much of anything if they post you on the story. Like, I mean, granted, that might just be me, so I'll speak personally, but I post people on my Instagram story all the damn time, and there can be zero anything going on. Like, for example, whenever I'm with Liz, listen, you think me and Liz motherfucking dating. I'm always like, the Liz Rich, celebrity alert, and it's like, the fuck, that's my homie. So it's like me personally, that's the way I look at it. But I guess some people, maybe not.
Yeah, Liz is your friend. Like, if you had a girl where you
other people don't know that though.
Yeah,
and I don't care.
Totally. But I think but if you were 4 or 5 dates in with a woman who clearly liked you, you're still trying to assess what you thought, and then you go to a party with her and someone takes a picture and they go, oh, are we gonna put this on the story? Would you kind of feel a little bit like, okay, that might be a little much, or would you be all for it?
I wouldn't care.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like, for me, I look at Instagram stories, it's like, I don't give a fuck. I'll picture with anybody, whether we're going on 1 date, 2 dates, 12. Mm-hmm. But that might just be me, but to me, it's like not a big deal.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, Facebook, whoa.
Well, Mom's on Facebook.
Yeah, there we go. That's what I said. Facebook different. Instagram, Liz, I post anybody. Like, I really don't care.
Nice. Liz, what do you think?
I also don't really care. I do think if I was like early on dating someone, I wouldn't post them on my story. But I also think if I was just in a relationship too, I wouldn't really post them on my story until way down the line, because I like to keep that side of like myself separate. That being said, I think it's a really creative idea to like go about how to define the relationship, but it just like makes me question of like, why can't you just ask the person directly? Because I feel like this just shows like, what aren't you comfortable about communication with them? That's
the thing too. Like, yeah, maybe it worked for these people. Side note, if it didn't work, like, I don't know if she's going to report that statistic, but like, yeah, because if you, my theory, I don't even want to say it's a theory. My take is if you want to be in a relationship with someone, you should be totally comfortable saying, I'd like to be in a relationship with you. If you have that uncertainty or the fear of like, will I lose them? That's probably a sign that you haven't communicated, or that like uneasiness is a sign that whatever's going on, like, has just something off to it.
Yeah.
I agree. And like, even if, okay, so you don't get the response you want, then you're just like,
then you're at a party with this dude. And you have to react to this in front of your friends. And like, yeah, like I think also, like Owen said, because I think a lot of people have these perceptions of casual relationships, or like the guy that isn't looking for something serious, as this, like slimy ass dude who, wants to keep the casual situation a secret, and he's going to spit on you on the way out the door or something like that. Like, when people think of guy who wants casual, they think fuckboy, guy like that. A lot of guys who are looking for something casual do not see themselves like that and don't act like that. Like, there's a lot more of like, they are nice. They're just nice enough. Like they're, friendly, and like if unless they had some form of like another person they were interested in that they were actively seeing that was connected to you, where like it would kind of throw off that situation. I think like a lot of guys would have no issue appearing in a picture. They might actually like they're not embarrassed of what they're doing. They don't want it to be a relationship, but they're not embarrassed.
Yeah, I think too that there's been like a I guess perception that's developed when it comes to guys who want like casual or like even like a friends with benefits, whatever label people want to put on it, and it's like, oh, they text you at 2 a.m. only, what you doing, like, not even WYD question mark or where you at, and they're just like, you don't talk to them or you don't hear from them. Otherwise, it's almost like they send the bat signal into the air and just see if you kind of react to it. And that's not always the case. There's a lot of guys out there who want casual who will talk to their friends like all throughout the day or their sexual partners, and they want to see, hey, let me know when you get home safely. Hey, do you want to go shoot hoops at the park? Or hey, do you want to go play, I guess, pickleball, the new like hit game today?
Or they're driving you home and it's, oh, you want to go swing by and get breakfast?
Yeah, and it's like you can get brunch, you can do these things with them. It's just no romantic, I guess, advancement in terms of progressing towards a relationship. And you can really have those types of situations with people, and there's a lot of dudes out there who want that, but just don't want that commitment to being in a relationship. So it's not like, oh, he's going to treat me like shit. He's just going to like, have sex with me, sleep with me, and like ghost me, or not like care about who I am as my well-being. And I'm like, no, that's not always the case.
Yeah, and I think that's also just not a human way to behave. Like nobody for the sake of saying this isn't going to be a relationship is going to spit in someone's eye and say like, just so you know, this isn't real. Like,
right.
Kick you out of their house before anybody can know you exist. Like, I think that is kind of an odd perception that some people have.
It's like sneaking out the back door, like Tom and Jerry a little bit. So
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I think that's just like, it reminds me of what it was like in college. I feel like that was like it then, but we're adults now, and like, we want to be friends. We want to get to know someone at least personally. Like, it's just.
Yeah,
don't have time.
And I think college, what that has to do with, first off, like when people are in college, they're still trying to figure out their relationship with sex. So people are just weird about that in general. And then everybody knows everybody. Like I feel like if you're in a big city, there's no risk of like, oh, they're in, the fraternity next door or something like that, or the sorority next door. So I think there's more of like that secrecy maybe because of those environments. But yeah, like there's always those perceptions of like the casual situations that, I think a lot of guys don't think of themselves as, fuckboy. They think of their version of casual as something a bit more elevated. So pictures on the Instagram story, not a big deal.
No, I wouldn't do it, but like they can post me. Because I'm a
How long would it take you to post somebody on an Instagram page or story?
Maybe if we were like engaged, like I don't know, very, very slim that I would post someone that I'm dating. Yeah, very slim.
Yeah. Would you be apprehensive to do that in fear of like, giving someone the wrong idea if it wasn't something serious yet, or?
It would be. I would have to think about it, I guess, but like I probably wouldn't think twice. It's probably one of those things that like I would do in a moment and not think twice about it until like down the line, and if it created any type of awkward situation. But for me, it would be a bigger deal if I posted like an actual picture versus just like a story that deletes in 24 hours.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I'm like, I don't care.
Oh my God. I'll tell you guys like the most freaking, this story makes me look so fucking dumb. So I think this was like 2 summers ago, it was kind of at that 6-week mark of dating somebody. We're going on dates. And it was like close to the 4th of July or something like that. And we were at some like kind of like beach in Austin, like Valente Beach or something like that. And of course, like we're with like the friends who were couples, and we're taking their picture. And then they're like, "Oh, we'll take one of you," and it's a great picture. Like I looked very tan, I look good. And then he looks at it, looks over my shoulder, looks at it, and says, "Yeah, that's a great picture. You should totally post that. It looks really good." And I'm like in my head, because I'm thinking like the conversations we were having the week prior were very like, we're going toward relationship, like, and I was seeing that. Of course, I probably had a few drinks, but like that was my cue of like, okay, like he wants me to post it. This means something, so I post it. And then we were going back to like I think it was like my house or something like that from the beach, or we were going somewhere, and then we had separate cars or something like that. I get home to my house and I get a text from him saying, "Hey, like I can't come over, but like I'm not ready for a relationship," or something like that. And I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? We are like 70 likes deep right now. This is the most embarrassing moment of my life. Like literally, I felt like I was going to die. I hid it from my Instagram profile. I think I actually just deactivated Instagram for like the course of a week, but it was just like one of those freaking most embarrassing moments. Of course, everyone's gonna be like, "Well, Instagram is not a big deal." It's like, yeah, I mean, like it was pretty fucking embarrassing.
It was like you're putting yourself out there.
It was
and showcasing
yeah.
something new.
And I was also just like, why the fuck would you say post this? Like, oh, that's a great, like, you should totally post this. We look great. Like, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, there's certain like things that people, and I think I'm a big believer that different like milestones or like relationshipy behaviors, mean something. Like, I think most people would look at meeting somebody's parents as being like a big deal. But some people, like, they're like, everyone meets my family or something like that. There's people that are outliers. But I do think, like, that whole, like, posting somebody to the Instagram, page is a sign of, like, yeah, this is something. Like, I don't know. Like, it was just one of those freaking embarrassing moments.
Yeah, I feel like the whole, I guess, Insta official thing was a big deal back in, like, college and whatnot. But I feel like for me, especially my friends, like now that we've been a little bit older and we are involved with many different social activities and hobbies, posting pictures with friends that you're out with, out getting drinks or we ran into at the bars, like not like really a big deal. So for me personally, when I see that kind of stuff, I don't think anything of it until I start to see like a pattern. And then I'm like, oh, I've seen this person, like this is like the fourth time, the fifth time. And I'm like, all right, what the hell's going on here? And then I might ask a question or two, but not the first time at least.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of on that similar vein, does introducing somebody that you're dating or that you've been dating to your friends mean anything?
It means enough. It means enough.
Okay, what do you think, Liz?
Not really.
Do you have, do you gatekeep meeting your friends until a certain point into dating somebody?
I think if it's someone I like, I keep it separate for a little bit, but if it's someone that, like, I'm just like, I don't see this being anything serious, yeah, I don't care to meet my friends.
Makes sense. One of our listeners has a question about that. I need to stop freaking always...
Put the, like, auto unlock on or something?
I need to. Okay, so this person asked, does introducing me to his friends mean anything? Hi, just had a question. Is it a sign he wants something serious if he introduces you to his friends? As in, his friend is hosting a party and he invites you to come with him and you meet everyone who seems to be important to him. I've been seeing a guy I can't really figure out, but he's invited me to events like this, and I've kept in touch with some of the girls in his friend group through Instagram. In the past, when guys wanted something more casual, they always wanted to keep things like more secret, and this just doesn't feel like the case here, but at the same time, he's kind of inconsistent. Thoughts? 23, female, by the way.
I think just ask him. Yeah. I know it's easier said than done, but I'm like, for meeting friends, it could be anything. He just thinks they're like super fun to hang out with and just wants to spend time with you, what we were talking about earlier. Or maybe he is more serious about you and he does want you around in a like more serious like relationship standpoint.
Yeah, I think it depends because ultimately sometimes introducing friends or bringing somebody to an event could be a thing of convenience. Like, okay, it's great to have someone to drive home with. I'm not driving home on my own. Or it's good to have someone I can socialize with because everyone else is going to be coupled and partnered up and you're not, like, kind of just, like, floating into the abyss, like, looking for, like, social groups to, like, merge into. So, ultimately, I would say it means enough to be thought about to be invited, but it's not always, like, a telltale sign because ultimately... No.
I guess what kind of event is it, too, is what I want to know. Because if it's, like, weddings, yeah, I feel like that's a big deal. But if it's more like a group, like a pregame or party, tailgate, like, that's more fun, social.
Yeah. No, I think it depends on the person. Because, like, I'm somebody where meeting my friends and getting along with my friends is a prerequisite to being in a relationship with me. It's like, I don't want to call anything a test, but it's kind of like a test you've got to pass. Like a vibe check, though. It's like... a lot of my friends, it's like when they've gotten in relationships, they kind of join the group and it's like we're fun, we do stuff together. And if someone just doesn't really like mix with the group, it's just kind of like not a good move. So that's kind of one of those things that I never gate kept until later. And if I was like starting to date a guy who was gatekeepy with his friends, I thought that was weird. I was kind of like, I don't want to have to wait until far out to meet your friends because who your friends are kind of part of who you are. So I think like, I think it can be kind of part of the pie in that way, but I also think there's some people where they're just like, everybody meets my friends. Like, I know people who are like, everybody meets my family. Like that.
Oh my God, no. I don't think I've ever, told my parents about anyone I've dated. Like, I've never been, like, that interested in any of those people.
Totally. And I think everyone's family dynamics are different. Like, if you think of, like, the kid in your high school or, like, from your hometown who was, like, the party house and the parents just met everybody and it was, like, everybody in the whole school came through. Like, those people, like, when they become adults and their parents are still alive and whatnot, like, they have no qualms introducing people to their parents.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
There are people that are just like that, and everybody meets their family, and that could easily give somebody the wrong idea if their family has different, like, values and whatnot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think, like, if somebody says, like, introduces you to something, or, I'm sorry, invites you to something that involves introducing you to friends, like, a good, maybe, like, response to that is just saying, ooh, like, party with your friends. Like, that sounds like a big deal or something like that. And you can say these things casually. Like, I think a lot of people, when they're talking about, like, having a difficult conversation, they almost make it seem like you have to go up to this person and, like, have this little prepared speech. And I feel like the more casual you can make those things, like, the more, like, fun, the easier it is. But just like, oh, like, okay, like, barbecue Super Bowl party, or like, oh, you want me to be a +1 at the wedding? Like, that sounds like a big deal. And then kind of, like, assess their response from there. If they say something like, well, I had a +1 and, like, all my friends are married and, like, I would be the weirdo that's alone, it's like it kind of says what the thing means to them.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people, they'll kind of, like, make something a lot more difficult than it needs to be. And they'll go into a situation and they'll be like, hey, can we talk? And then, to make it seem all serious and pull you to a secluded private area to talk. And they're just like, hey, so, I don't feel comfortable, whatever, going to the Super Bowl party. And it's like, oh, you could just have said that in the moment. You'd have been like, okay, no problem.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, yeah, people need to stop doing, like, hey, we need to, like, turning things into a big deal. Like, the more casual you make shit, like, the less stressful it is. And, like, people are more receptive to it anyway. Like, don't be fucking weird, people. Don't be weird. God damn it, I've lost my freaking thing. Okay. But no, glad we resolved that. Another quick hit question. What is the bar for a date? And when I say what's the bar for a date or what's considered a date, I don't mean, like, good date versus bad date or, like, the lowest version of date you'll accept. It's more along the lines of, everybody could probably agree that going to dinner with a romantic interest is a date. And at the same time, they'd probably also agree that Netflix and chill is not a date. That's some sort of, like, a casual hangout hookup type situation. What separates a date from a casual hangout or meetup? That's the thing. Also, you're romantically attracted to one another in these situations. So maybe you matched on a dating app. It's clear there's something flirty here, but what separates date from casual?
I would say for starters, a stated intention for a date in a traditionally a public-facing venue, whether that is a coffee shop, a restaurant, the park, the gym, I guess. I mean, whatever. You can theoretically consider that to be a date, even just going for a walk in your nearby city or, like, museum, whatever. But I would never really consider, hey, our first date, she, came over, or second date she came over, watch. I mean, that could be, I guess, if you really put your mind to it, but there'd have to be more than somebody just coming over to watch Netflix.
Yeah.
Either, they came over, we made dinner together and watched a movie and had a bottle of wine. Or we grilled in my courtyard and then went upstairs and watched a movie. I would say that's a date. But just coming over, I mean, it could be theoretically, but my idea of a date wouldn't necessarily be to jump to that. But I guess if you really, like, I guess, finessed it right enough and, like, added some other, like, details and key things to it, I mean, it could be.
I agree. I 100% agree with what you're saying. I think it's more of, like, the thought that goes into planning the activity. It could literally be a walk, but, like, doing, like, oh, do you want to meet here, like, days in advance, not something, like, so last minute where it's just, like, not showing the same respect or appreciation for time for that other person.
Got it. So if someone says, come through, they send you a text like, hey, like, let's fire up this show. It's 7 o'clock. We're not doing midnight right here. Someone says, hey, like, roll through, come over, and then you get there and they put on a movie and then they order DoorDash. Is that a date because they paid money and there's food and it's elevated? Would you call that a date?
I think it depends on how far you guys have been dating for. Like, it could be a date later on, but if I was just, like, newly dating someone, I wouldn't consider that a date. I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that.
I want to almost ask how many people would even go to that, especially, like, early on in the game, to the point where would there even be a question whether or not it's a date or not?
So I don't see anybody doing that for a first dating app date, but I think if somebody was, they had someone they met through friends or they met, out or something like that, like maybe they'd be more open to that if they'd met somebody in person. And I think kind of where I'm getting at is more like, I think there is more like with it when it comes to like what is or isn't a date. It's one of those like it when you see it. Mm-hmm. But I'll share my theory and kind of the test. I don't want to say I coined a theory because fucking random ass influencers do that and I find them annoying. But I do think like one thing that kind of is a good way to measure a date. If this person's romantically attracted to you, you met him like on a dating app, something like that. We're not talking about the situations where you're wondering if it's like a friend hangout, like is it a date or are we just friends? Is what I call the calendar test, which basically just asks, could you make it a dedicated event on a calendar? Mm-hmm. Not that you have to. You don't have to do that. That would be weird. But like, could you do it? In a sense that when you put something on a calendar, you have a date, a time, a place, and you have some sort of lead time. And it's like specific to this person. So like a lot of times, a lot of things just won't fall in that by nature. Like even though it could, it wouldn't. So if someone says, because a lot of times when someone says, come over to my house, if someone says, come over to my house, we'll watch a movie. And then they like text you that the day of like, hey, like, do you think you could come over at like 7? And then, they throw out like a soft time and then you go over there. There's not really an end time. It's their house, but, it's like kind of like a soft event in that way, if that makes sense. Like you don't tell somebody if it's a Netflix and chill, just in general, you're not like, hey, like next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m., my house, firm. Like a lot of times if it's something's casual, it will feel casual in terms of planning.
Yeah.
But like a date, date time venue, if it's drinks 7 p.m. Thursday at Brew and Brew, like that's a date. I think that also accounts for stuff where it's like the date, maybe doesn't cost money. Because some people are like, well, it has to cost something. It's like, well, what about the picnic at the park? Like, does that count? So I think like that kind of sets the bar for what is or isn't a date. I also think too, like those like casual hangouts too. So because some people are like, well, don't those count for something? I think they're valuable when they're part of a larger puzzle. Mm-hmm. But if that's the only thing you do, it's kind of like you can't really call that dating, or see it as something serious. Like if you're doing like, a date like once a week and then, you sprinkle in some like, oh, come over and we'll watch Game of Thrones. Like, I think that means something, but when it's only that, it's like, meh.
Yeah, it feels like that's a little probably too casual. Mm-hmm. And there's definitely merit to being able to just like veg out with somebody, order, Domino's, Pizza Hut, whatever, get some food and just chill. But ultimately, you can only do that for so long because if that's all you do, it gets fucking boring. And ultimately, you don't really feel any investment and any closeness to it because at some point it does become almost monotonous and just quite frankly lazy. Mm-hmm. And that is not really extremely sustainable. So the people who do try to start off with that and continue going to that well, it's almost like you give it like a very, very short like shelf life.
Mm-hmm. No, that totally makes sense. Yeah, have either of you ever been in a situation where someone approached you and invited you to do something with them and you were not sure if it was a date or not in a romantic sense, like friend versus date?
All the time. Sorry.
Yeah, what's you guys fire off a story for us?
Oh gosh. Okay, this actually happened very recently. We were at one of our friends' birthday parties, mm-hmm. and I was just talking to a guy as a friend, like super casual. I go into like any person I talk to like I just want to get to know someone. I treat them like a person. I don't treat this as like, oh, this person's cute or not. Just getting to know someone. And then they're like, oh, do you want to like go hang out like next weekend? Let's like do something. I was like, yeah, no problem. Like thinking as a friend sense. And then I show up. I'm like, oh, this is not like a friend. This is a date. And it just really throws me off because they're like, oh, let's hang out, like grab food. Thinking like, because that's what you do when you meet a new friend. You grab food, you grab a drink. That's how you meet people. But it's just like, I think being clear of like let's go on a date or like grab dinner or something.
Mm-hmm. What did they pick as a place though? Because I feel like sometimes like if you pick like if someone came to you and said like we're gonna go to like Peche or something fancy, you would know right away. So it must have been like an invitation to something that felt more friendly than datey, probably, right?
Oh, they've been like brunches, taco places.
Okay, taco's fair. I was gonna say brunch. Okay. I was gonna say if it's something like Maddie's, Liz, like they're taking you on dates. But
I go into like every encounter I meet that everyone wants to be my friend. Like maybe my ego's too high in that sense, but no, then I show up, I'm like, this is not, this is a date. And I was like, I wouldn't have gone. Nothing against the people. They're all lovely people. But I was just, like, not seeing them in that sense.
Got it. No, that totally makes sense. Owen, do you ever get in that situation?
Very infrequently, because it's not like it's not as common, you know, for women to be asking out men, you know, and I can't really recall the last time that has happened to me, because it's very rare. It's almost like the unicorn Loch Ness monster.
Has the shoe ever been on the other foot, though, where it's like you ask somebody out and you're like, oh shit, they had no idea this was supposed to be like a date?
I think one time I had met a girl at a party. We, you know, like made out and stuff at the party, and she had told me at the time, oh, I wanted something to be really casual. I'm like very new to DC. And I was like, all right. So I just made like a little reservation to get pizza at this new like hit spot in town. And the day of, she was like, oh, this feels a little too casual for me. I'm looking for something a little bit more intentional. Casual doesn't really work for me. And I'm kind of just like,
pick a lane.
Because she's like, oh, you know, but I'm like, you told, she was like, but I was like, you told me you wanted something more casual. You're new to DC. You know, you're not really trying to jump into anything. And she was like, oh, I'm sorry. I was really drunk that day. I don't really remember what I was saying. So it's like you're approaching the situation as like some chill thing. And like, oh, you know, like let's meet up to grab some like pizza and grab a bite to eat, chill. And they're like, oh, they're not being assertive enough in a romantic sense for me. And it's kind of like, dog, what?
Well, that's just, I mean, that person's in control of their own destiny, and they're going to fail miserably if they can't pick a lane and decide what they want. Yeah, let's help a listener figure out if their situation's a date or not, though. Yeah, so mailbag, is this a date? There was a woman in my intramural kickball team that I've always found attractive. Ooh, oh, and you like kickball. And we interact in a way that feels like it could be flirty. You know, compliments, friendly roasting of one another. Our league is coming to an end, she said to me. We should totally hang out. And suggested seeing a stand-up comedy show for a comedian we both like. So is this a date, or does she just see me as a friend? How can I find this out in a way that isn't awkward? She's nice. I wouldn't mind a friendship if it isn't romantic. Parentheses, at arm's length, not looking to me in the dreaded friend zone, but don't want a weird or uncomfortable interaction to be the way that I find that out. What do you think?
Ultimately, honestly, they might have to just be like, hey, would you like to go out sometime? Like, and
well, she's already said, let's go to a comedy show. Is that comedy show a date? I feel like comedy show is one of those where it's like
that's
the
close.
Gray area.
That is very like teetered like on the fence.
There are certain things that like I'm like they're like I think if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Like there are certain restaurants where you do not go there if it's not a date. Like you don't go there with friends. There are certain places where it's like that is for friends. And then a comedy show, especially one that you both like, it's like that's a toss-up.
Honestly, I would say something just like, hey, I really think you're really cool. I'm interested in you. Like, would you like to just go out? Honestly, just do it.
I would say
Nike.
That is a really good approach. And if you're like unsure, just go to the comedy show, read the vibes, and if you still can't sense it, just be like, I would love to take you to dinner sometime, and just go from there and see how she takes it.
Yeah. I think so. I think like comedy show is like a toss up. It could go either way. Like if you aren't sure about her either, like I think there's nothing wrong with like going to the comedy show. I don't think like that makes you like you're going down a road. Like if you go to a comedy show with someone, you find out like, oh, it is a friend thing. Like I don't think that's like you spent all your time in this like friend zone. And I think that also helps you assess if you like her if you've only seen her at kickball. Because sometimes like people, you meet them in a league and you're like, oh, you're fucking weird when you're not in this place that I met you. So I think like that's helpful. And then kind of from there, maybe since she's kind of gone the first and maybe taking the lead with asking you out, so proactive woman, very nice. Then maybe asking for something more date centric. And I do think most women can like pick up, especially like, I don't know, did he say how old he was? No, because I was gonna say if a woman's a bit older, like you kind of like know more. Like I feel like as a younger woman, sometimes I used to be like, oh, like haha, like this is probably just all fun, and like now it's like if it feels like a date, like I would shut it down quickly.
Yeah, I do think. I feel like most of the time girls don't really go out of their way to like ask a guy out and hang out. Not saying that's always the case. Some girls do it. But I do think it could be a date because like she was trying to, and then just playing it by ear how the guy responds.
Totally. And
Big
I think
question though, how many other people are being invited? Because it's like Liz was saying, it's pretty rare in all things considered for like a woman to invite like a man out to do something and like the wild, just them two.
Yeah.
And it's not a date. So unless it's like somebody you have the pre-established relationship with too.
Totally. I think the only thing that like throws me off is like people that are fans of certain comedians like ride hard for them, and like sometimes like I just think of like people who are fans of certain comedians and how like they just like the fans band together, and like when they find another fan they're like, ah, like, so that's the only thing I think that makes me just as a stand-up comedy person kind of be like, oh shoot, is this, especially like sometimes like stand-up comedy and like kind of dorky people that are bad at social cues kind of fall together in one bucket. It's a Venn diagram that basically is just a circle. So I think that's kind of where my hesitation would be, if anything. I think like throwing the word date out in a way that's fun and casual like can really, you know, send that right message. Like just saying things like you pick a day and time, place, you do your calendar test, and then you just say, cool, it's a date. And just say it like that. And put it in a text, it's a date, exclamation point. And like I think if someone is trying to like, you know, really make it a point to be like, oh, you know, friends, or you know, we're not trying to date, they will be afraid of the word date, and then they will be like, oh, hold up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a quick way to send people for the hills.
Exactly. Yeah. I think we kind of resolved everybody's problems. Did we solve the dating problem, modern dating in 2023?
It is done.
Yeah.
It's finished. No, I'm kidding.
It's finished. It's finished. What are we going to do this weekend?
Tailgate?
Hopefully, yeah. You know, the Longhorns are playing Rice. I think the Rice Owls, I think that's what they are. So hopefully can get out there, get to the game, get tailgating or something. At the minimum, I plan on trying to buy me a burnt orange T-shirt.
Hook 'em horns.
Yeah, be a fake fan. I had a nice Texas football conversation at the pool bar today. Learned that
you went to the
quarterback cut his hair. He cut his mullet.
Oh.
So he lost some weight. He cut his hair. He's ready for business this year. So, you know, enjoy Austin and hit the bars hopefully tonight and tomorrow night.
Yeah, we're going to a comedy show. Are we seeing Justine?
Her roommate, Justine, ain't that funny. No,
Justine's not fun? Okay, wait, no, but is Justine coming?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Her roommate is doing a
friend
live
of the pod.
show.
Nice. I'm excited. It's right by my house, too. Anything else? Where can we find you guys? Owen, where can we find you?
At Dating with Owen on Instagram and TikTok. And, yeah, come say hi and let's be friends.
Let's fucking go. And Liz, what about you?
My Instagram is Liz_Rich_, just as it sounds.
Nice. And if you want Liz to be your life coach, where do you go?
Instagram or erichardsoncoaching.com.
Woo woo. Let's go team. Yeah, everybody, over and out. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.